Welcome back. Here on Police Report, we provide you with information on crime trends, crime prevention techniques, and community programs. But you can get additional information by visiting the Baltimore County Police Department's website as well. The address is on your screen. Press releases from the Baltimore County Police Department can be accessed on the Baltimore County Police Department's website and on our Facebook and Twitter accounts. We encourage you to like us on Facebook, and we encourage you to follow us on Twitter for the latest news. The Baltimore County Police Department is now hiring police cadets and police officers. For additional information, go to joinbaltimorecountypd.com or call 410-887-5542 to speak with recruiters. According to Safe Kids Worldwide, children between the ages of 0 and 19 make up half of the pedestrian fatalities in the United States. We have seen a 13% increase in the number of pedestrian deaths across the country for ages 12 through 19-year-olds since 2013. To discuss how we can reduce the numbers of these pedestrian fatalities is Officer Cynthia Spriggs of our Traffic Resource Management section. Thank you, Officer Spriggs, for joining us today on the program.
You're welcome.
Okay. And with the new school year approaching, we're going to start seeing children going to the school bus, waiting at the bus stops, riding their bikes, or walking to school. Do drivers need to raise their awareness at this time of the year?
Yes, they're going to need to raise their awareness. Everybody's going to get back into their school routines. You're going to see the increase in the morning and the afternoon traffic, both in the vehicular traffic as well as the pedestrian traffic.
Yes. And you said pedestrian traffic. What about children that are in school zone areas? Should they raise their awareness when they're driving in front of schools or near schools?
Yes, if there's a school in your neighborhood, those streets that lead to that school, the streets in front of the school, even the main thoroughfares, you're going to have a lot of the bus traffic as well as in the neighborhoods, the pedestrian traffic, the kids going to school.
So we're going to see a lot more foot traffic in these areas with parents and children and teachers, so they should be aware when they're driving around in that area, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then drivers should also be aware of when there's people in the crosswalks in these areas. What's the law right now for a pedestrian that's inside of a crosswalk?
When the driver is approaching the crosswalk and there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk, the driver has to stop on their half of the roadway, or if the pedestrian is in the crosswalk on their half of the roadway or the adjacent lane, they must stop or they'll receive a citation with points and fines.
Okay. And one of the systems that we have set up in Baltimore County is our speed cameras. Now, because of state law of Maryland, the speed cameras are in our school zones. Can you kind of explain this program, the speed camera program that we have in Baltimore County?
Yes, we have the portable speed cameras, so you may see one in front of a local school near you, and then a couple weeks later it may not be there, but they're portable amongst all the different local schools. And it's a fine that's issued. It's a civil fine. Once you hit the threshold of 12 or over the speed limit, you'll receive a $40 citation in the mail.
Okay. And it's mostly the cameras are activated during the day, during the time that the school children are be coming to school or leaving school, correct?
It's Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
Okay, all right. But we will have officers out there doing enforcement in different areas of the time, so it's not like after 8 p.m. we can go flying through a speed zone or a school zone, correct?
Correct, and sometimes, especially in the beginning of the school year, you'll have those back to school nights, so you may see people even at the schools later, so you always want to keep an eye out. Okay. But in general, the officers will be taking over in the evenings.
And we always encourage our drivers to be as safe as possible. We've seen some tragic accidents happen. We want to try to keep our students as safe as possible, correct?
Absolutely. Okay. Slow the speeds down when you're in and around schools.
Okay. And then as parents, what advice should we be giving to our children if they're going to be walking to school or riding their bikes to school?
Well, the walkers, we wanted to go back to the basics. Stop, look, and listen. They want to stop before they're crossing the road at the crosswalk. The crosswalk is the safest place for them. They want to look 3 times, teaching kids look left, right, left. They need to look back to the left before they step out, because that's where the car that's going to be the closest to them when they step into the street. And then listen. Cars are getting a lot quieter. We want the kids to not have the earbuds in, just pay attention to the traffic.
Okay, and then we want to talk to our children, explain this. They might not realize how dangerous it can be if they're running out into the street. So we definitely want to have this talk with our children, correct?
Correct. Children, their minds don't function the same way. They're still developing. They dart out because they don't understand that it takes a certain amount of time for a moving vehicle to stop. So we really want to make sure that they are being very cautious in and around the sidewalk area, even into the crosswalks. The other thing is teach them not to go between the cars. That's very dangerous. Even myself, who's not the tallest person, with the new, the way that the SUVs are these days, minivans, even some of the sedans, you can't see in between them. So you want to avoid that at all costs.
Absolutely, definitely. I never thought about coming out between the two cars, but that's definitely something that could result in a tragic incident.
Absolutely.
Yes. And the other thing is, what advice would we want to give to children who are riding their bikes, or the parents that can explain to their children if they're riding their bikes to school?
Well, if there's a bike path, use the bike path. Stay on the sidewalk if, especially when they're younger. They need to stay on the sidewalk. They don't belong on the roads. The parents should determine at what age they're ready and appropriate, because they need to know the rules of the road. And a young child, especially, in the elementary school age, they don't understand all the rules. And even middle school, sometimes we need to address that as well. They think that they know those rules, but to keep them safe, we need to make sure that they know all those rules before they're out riding their bikes. Always wear that helmet. They have to have a nice and proper tight fit. A loose helmet is just as dangerous as not having a helmet at all.
Really? Okay. And visibility, should their clothing, so what advice can we give as far as the clothing that the children should wear if they're on a bike?
Bike or walking, bright and reflective. Don't wear the dark clothes. If you do, put a bright shirt over top. That's why you see the construction workers and, police officers handling traffic in those bright suits. But just a little something. Even parents can put reflective tape on backpacks. Some of the shoes light up, but, anything that is going to grab an attention of an eye.
Yeah, I know the colors that my kids wear to school, we don't have any issues. So they like to wear some bright stuff.
It seems to be popular with the kids these days, which is great. But when we get into the colder weather, then they're going to have those bright, fun colors covered up, and we just want to make sure they still keep all that reflective stuff.
Okay, great. And then as far as you kind of touched on crossing the street, so what should we talk to our children about when they're walking to school to be aware of while they're walking to school?
Well, while they're walking, again, stay on the sidewalk. And I know the kids, especially in the beginning, they're really anxious and ready for school. When it's the social scene, they're kind of joking around. Well, don't joke around while you're walking to school, because you need to pay attention to the traffic, the cars that are around. Focus on going to your intersections to cross, not crossing in the middle section of the road, the stop, look, listen. And as parents, we also need to remember that we're the role models. So what we're doing, whether it's walking to school or just in the neighborhood, they're following, and that's how they're going to do it too.
Okay. And is it safer for children to be in groups when they're walking to school?
That's the best practice, if you can do that.
Okay, all right. And then we also want parents to be aware to explain to their children if they're approached by someone, kind of getting away from the traffic angle of it, but if they're approached by someone, a stranger tells them something like that, should they have a safety plan in place to be aware of walking to school when they're approached by someone?
Absolutely great. And a great thing for the parents to do is even walk them to their path so that they can see it, and they can keep an eye out for maybe large bushes or so forth, things that they may want to just be more aware of when they're walking to and from school. Parents should devise some kind of plan if they know neighbors and the routes that they go to school. Maybe that's where they go, teaching them what they need to do if in fact a stranger does approach them.
Okay. And our cell phones are great. Children having the cell phones can be great, that they can stay in touch with their parents. They can actually use the cell phone if they get in trouble. But what are some of the problems that we're seeing with cell phones and children?
Well, cell phones, like children and adults, but especially children, they're very focused. They're playing a game, they're looking at whatever, pictures or photos. They're looking at that cell phone and they're not looking at anything else. So if they're walking, they've got the risk of tripping. If there's people around them that may be of suspicious nature, they're definitely not going to be aware, because their head's not up and on a swivel. It's down looking at what they're focus is on.
Okay, so it's important for us to talk to our children to be aware of their surroundings all the time, correct?
Correct.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, thank you. And We talked about the cell phones. We want to remind our drivers also with their cell phones. What is some advice that you want to tell our drivers? I mean, it's probably very basic, but yes.
Well, I mean, like everybody, just put it down. I mean, that's the most basic we can get. But, check your phone. Some phones have the disable when driving feature, so it'll automatically send a text that you're driving in the vehicle and that you'll get back to them later. Turn the ringer off or on vibrate and nothing else. Put it in the back seat. You can't access it. Just make sure it's not in reach, so that even at a stoplight, you still want to focus your attention on the people or vehicles around you. You don't want to pay attention to the phone because that's distracting.
Okay. And are you aware of any websites that can give us some information that can help us on pedestrian safety and school safety?
Absolutely. And I heard you mentioned Safe Kids Worldwide. They can go to that one. There's a lot of resources on there. They talk about a bunch of different things, but they do touch on the school aspect of it, as well as NHTSA, the National Traffic Safety Administration.
Okay. All right. And then let's talk about school buses a little bit. What's some of the do's and don'ts when it comes to school buses in our community?
Well, the do is pay attention. They're big, bright buses. You're not going to miss them. But you want to stay a further distance behind them than you would other vehicles. They're going to make frequent stops. They're going to, be loading and unloading the children. They're driving, throughout the entire neighborhood. So don't get frustrated with them. Just let them do their job. They need to take the children safely to school. So, like I said, just give them some room. Make sure that they're able to do what they need to do. And again, children are getting on and off the buses. And as we know, sometimes children aren't the easiest to get out of the door in the morning. You may have one running late to the bus, and you're trying to get to work too, but that child just darts out. So you really want to make sure you're watching out for everything. And they're going to stop and they're going to do their yellow lights and then their red flashing. So just be aware of those lights.
Okay. So when the yellow flashing goes on, what should we do as drivers?
It's much like the yellow light in a traffic light. It's the caution. It's about to turn red, or in this case, I'm about to stop. So when you see that yellow light, don't speed up to get around the bus because you don't want to wait. You want to stop, slow down, and they're likely at that point slowing down to their next stop for their children.
Okay. And what you want to remember too as a driver, you do not want to be involved in an accident where you've hurt a child seriously.
Absolutely not.
Okay. And so can we discuss what the violations are? So if I run that red signal on a school bus, what's the violation that I'll face?
It's a pretty hefty one. It's a $570 citation. It does carry 3 points. And like you said, if there is a crash involved with it, there are higher penalties.
Okay. All right. And where can I find out more information about the law, the school bus law?
We have it on our website, on the Baltimore County Police website. If you go under Your Safety, then it's on the there's school bus information as well. If you go on by your phone, it's real easy to scroll down to the bottom. On your desktop, it'd be to your left.
Okay. So if I'm on a simple road, just a single one lane going each direction, I think it's pretty clear that both sides have to stop for a school bus. Is that right?
Correct. You have to stop and remain stopped until they've finished their, and you'll know that by their red lights going off.
But what if I'm on a multi-lane road and I'm on the opposite side of the school bus, then when it stops, what's the law concerning that?
You have to stop unless there is a physical barrier, and a physical barrier is a concrete median, a grass median. It's not the yellow lines. It's not lines on the road. It is an actual physical barrier. If there is no physical barrier present, then you must stop even in the furthest lane from that bus.
Okay, got it. And another crucial part of keeping children safe is our school crossing guard program in Baltimore County. Can you explain this program that we have?
Yeah, we service about 108 schools. The school guard comes out about a half an hour before school and about a half an hour after school, and their job is to ensure the safety of those crossing to school. And you'll see them not only right at the school, but you may see them around the schools too, to make sure that those walkers are getting to school properly.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So much. Thank you. With children returning to school this time of year, the police department wants to prepare drivers to be on the lookout for children getting on and off of school buses and those walking to school. Officer Spriggs gave us some great advice on driver safety and how to keep our children safe while coming to and from school. If you would like more information concerning traffic and pedestrian safety, please call the Traffic Resource Management section at 410-887-7361. Thank you again, Officer Spriggs, for joining us today on the program.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Corporal Sean Vinson, and you're watching Police Report.